Welcome to Leave No Taste. I'm Mark, and today we are making venison Boudin balls. Boudin is a very popular dish in Louisiana and eastern Texas. It comes from the Acadian culture that uses rice, a lot of vegetables, liver. Liver is always included, and you can use any number of meats. There's purists as to what Louisiana Boudin is, and there are specialty shops, and there's, places that are the Boudin capital of the world and everything. I'm not here to try to take over any titles, but it is an amazing way to use up some good game meats and get an amazing amount of flavor out of the ingredients that you have on hand. We're going to start with, I have a pound of venison meat. You can use diced up meat. This is all going to be fed through a meat grinder or a food processor, depending on what you have on hand. So I happen to have ground. Thank you, Daryl. I also have a half pound of pork liver from our pig that we get every year. I have basically a standard Cajun trinity, which is celery, onion, and green pepper, but I'm using poblano pepper for a little more kick and a little flavor than a standard green pepper. 3 chili arbol, a couple of bay leaves, about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic chopped up, 1 tablespoon of salt with an optional, I have a 1/4 teaspoon of pink curing salt in here as well. It just makes for a little better color retention in the final product. We're going to use some black pepper, some fantastic Creole seasoning, and a little bit of brandy to deglaze with. So I'm going to begin here by seasoning my meat thoroughly with the Creole seasoning. I've got Tony Chacheries, but whether you have, Cajun Magic or any number of the Louisiana Cajun boil or whatever, you can make your own as well. I'm going to go ahead and add my meat to a pot of hot oil. Now, Boudin is a great way to use up a whole number of game meats. The Cajuns in the South, I've had alligator Boudin, I've had duck Boudin, I've had crawfish Boudin. It's a fantastic and flavorful way to make the most out of the ingredients that you have, especially with game meats or seafood. We're going to check on our meat. So once my meat started to brown, I went ahead and added my Cajun Trinity, my chili arbol, my bay leaves, and my garlic. So I'm stirring that around to develop a little bit of flavor here. And as soon as the vegetables start to tenderize a little bit, I go ahead and add 1 shot of brandy. I'm going to give it a few turns of black pepper. Add my salt. And I'm just going to cover this with water. And now that this is covered in water, I'm going to put a lid on it. I'm going to let it cook for about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and we'll strain it and proceed from there. So our ingredients have been simmering for about 1 hour and 15 minutes, 1 hour and 20 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and pull them off the stove. I'm going to strain all of my meat and vegetables out, spread them on a cooking sheet to cool down before grinding them and mixing them with the rest of our ingredients. But you absolutely want to reserve all of this cooking liquid because that's going to be used later on when you need to season, adjust, and moisten your final Boudin product. And again, Boudin can be, we're making Boudin balls with this recipe, but a lot of people stuff it into casings, which is actually the most traditional way, where they squeeze it out of casings onto saltine crackers and serve it with some mustard at basically any general store in Louisiana. But Boudin balls are also a very popular dish at a lot of restaurants and general stores and whatnot, and that's what we're going to do with ours. So got most of my ingredients here. I'm going to go ahead and strain off the braising liquid. Spread all this out evenly so it will cool a little bit quicker. I'm going to put this in the fridge, let it chill down, and we will then start combining the rest of our ingredients and making our boudin. So we pulled our ingredients out of the refrigerator. I let these cool overnight. You certainly don't have to cool them that long, just as long as you cool it down to where it's cold to the touch and refrigerated. You know, you can probably do it in a couple hours if it's spread out on a sheet like this. But you just want it to be cold when you're working with it. Traditionally, this would be ground in a meat grinder. It can also be done with a food processor, which I feel like a lot of people have at home. Maybe some people don't have a grinder, so I'm going to go ahead and do it in a processor today. So I'm going to take my lid off, and depending on how much you have or the size of your food processor, you might need to do this in a couple batches instead of just one batch, but you'll see the desired consistency is the most important part. So it's good to not overload your, yeah, I think we're going to work in two batches here. Put a little piece of liver. And I'm just going to work the pulse setting here. And this is about the consistency that we're looking for. Not complete paste, but sticky enough and blended well together so that there's not distinct chunks of vegetables left over. So once we get that blended, we're going to add it to, I have 2 cups of cooked white rice. It weighs out to about a pound, 15, 16 ounces, which if you're using uncooked rice that you're going to cook to make this much, it's probably about a cup's worth of dry rice that you would then cook, and you'll probably end up with about 2 cups. And this fluctuates. Some places use more rice in their boudin, some places use less rice in their boudin. There's arguments all over Louisiana about the exact amounts, but it's kind of up to you and your taste. So don't worry about it if you have a little more or a little less. You're going to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and add this first batch of meat mixture here. Scrape it out with your rubber spat. Yeah, that looks like it's going to work. Go ahead and do our second batch of venison and liver and vegetables here. And when we start mixing this into the rice, this is why I said earlier to reserve your cooking liquid, because depending on how dry your rice is and whatnot, we're going to use a little bit of that to moisten our boudin balls to make sure that we get a nice sticky but moist consistency before we roll them up and fry them. There we go. So now we have our ground meat and rice and vegetables. So we're going to go ahead and mix this. You can do it with a spoon, but the best way is really by hand. This is also when everything is cooked here, so feel free to taste it to get the right flavor balance that you want. I have some Cajun hot sauce, some Creole seasoning, and some fresh parsley. Normally they would throw in a little bit of fresh green onion too. I don't have any green onion right now, so we're just going to work with what we have. But feel free to mix it and season to your liking and your taste. And my rice is been in the fridge for a couple days, so it's a little bit dry. I'm going to add a little bit of my Boudin cooking liquid here. I'll give it a little dash of hot sauce because I like it spicy. Throw in our parsley. This is actually probably about a quarter cup of fresh chopped parsley. And then we're just going to go ahead and mix this thoroughly. And you can see the consistency here. This is exactly what we're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little taste here. That's good. I'm actually going to add a little bit more Creole seasoning. I feel like a little bit of salt, a little bit of spice isn't going to hurt this. So we've got our Boudin all mixed up here. We're going to go ahead and start making some little balls. Maybe, I mean, you can make them whatever size you want, but to cook them, to heat them all the way through without burning the breadcrumb on the outside, I'm going to go with something maybe a little bit smaller than a golf ball. So I'm just going to ball all of this up so we can bread them and fry them. All right, we've got our Boudin balls shaped. I wound up with about 44, so yeah, if you come somewhere between 40, 45, that's probably a good shape of Boudin ball. I have some hot oil here, and it's good to have a candy thermometer or grease thermometer so you can temp your oil. You want it to be at about 350 degrees, 350, 375 for a household fryer setup. I've got seasoned dredging flour with just salt and pepper, a little dash of Creole seasoning. I have some egg wash. I think I have 4 eggs in there and a little splash of milk. And then some seasoned breadcrumbs that I had a little bit of leftover bread here that I ground up. And then to supplement that, I just threw some saltine crackers and blended those together. So got my fryer set up, and I'm going to go ahead and start breading and frying some Boudin balls here. We just want to get a light coating of flour so that the egg wash will stick to the flour, and then put them around. That way the bread will stick to the egg wash. And making as many of these as I did, you can fry them, right off the bat like we are right now. You could also bread these and freeze them. Okay, so our boudin are fried, and we're ready to plate up here. So, nice golden brown, crispy and crunchy. Maybe one more. And there we have it. Venison boudin with chipotle aioli, which I will link to a recipe for that as well. I'm going to go ahead and garnish with a little fresh parsley. And there it is, venison boudin, chipotle aioli. We'll see you next time on Leave No Taste. Make the most of the food you make.